Hello, welcome late night Facebook users, and welcome also on Soundcloud.com, Spreaker.com, KVOLE for both of those. Like and subscribe on YouTube, Kevin Olenick. Follow me on Twitter at KEVOLE as well. Late night, had a couple things to do, and thought before I went to sleep here as I adjust. Who dresses me in the morning? Anyway, thought before I went to kind of ended my night, we've been talking a bit about the Edmonton Eskimos possibly changing their nickname because this has been brought up a lot as we head towards the Grey Cup and as well as throughout the playoffs, actually the CFL playoffs. The mayor of Winnipeg brought it up during the week that the Winnipeg and Edmonton were playing their game. And now Rachel Notley and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau have been chiming in as well. And that's why we've been having this conversation. If you follow me on Twitter, we're having that debate. Is also, there's a poll. And right now, as we look at handy dandy Twitter, 58% people actually agree that it is time for the Edmonton Eskimos to change their name. And 42% disagree. You can go back on that poll and you can vote as well. We still have time for that to be done. I do think, at the very least, and it's something that both Premier Notley said and Prime Minister Trudeau have said, at least it's important to engage in this conversation. I would agree with someone that mentioned on my Facebook that the idea of a reconciliation, and if it's not about us being offended, it's about if the Indigenous community is offended. And well, I'm going to read something from someone that actually presents an argument of why it is offensive. And I think that that's an important part of this. But as Rachel Notley said, good leadership engages the community and brings this conversation to a head. She never said, and let's get this clear because I read the quote, she never said they have to change their nickname. She's not instituting a law. She's not going to the Alberta legislator and saying, okay, we have a law here that the Edmonton CFL team needs to change their nickname right now or they cannot play football ever again. Let's not be ridiculous here. She said, I'm not going to tell them what to do, but good leadership engages the citizens. What Prime Minister Trudeau said, to be clear, is reconciliation isn't just about the Indigenous community and the Canadian government. It should involve all citizens. And that's a good point. And I do think that that's an important point to think about when we're having this conversation. And so that's why I think it's important to bring this debate to the table. Now, I also think that there is a number of other things on this. Some people bring up the Toronto football team nickname, and it's called the Argonauts. And why don't we have that debate about that? Because that could be potentially offensive to the Irish community. I don't really have an answer for that, but they do have switched their nickname to kind of Argos more than Argonauts. So I don't know why that isn't necessarily something that we discuss. But I also don't. People are talking about political correctness here, and why are we being politically correct? Why is political correctness ruling our society? What we don't ask in these conversations, I find more, is why do we have to It's almost like so with this political correctness thing, we're just offended about every little thing. We never ask, why is someone saying stuff that is offensive? Why don't you stop saying stuff that is offensive and then people won't be offended? I don't know, maybe I'm making this too logical here, but there's been nothing, it's why put this on the person that's feeling the offense over the comment or the tone that has been given, and why not the person that gives it, that says the thing that is offensive? Why isn't there more on that shoulder when we have these conversations? Instead of having the conversation about stop being so sensitive, how about we have this conversation about stop being so offensive? How about that conversation? We have that more. So, yeah, and I think that this is important. So my point is it's an important conversation to have, and I think it's something that we have to engage with if we're going forward with reconciliation. I mean, there's another story in the news today about the RCMP and the facing sexual harassment from roughly 1,100 women, and a lot of that is within the indigenous community, and that is a conversation we don't have a lot about. But I was brought up. I saw this coming because of the Me Too rally that was happening here in Vancouver. And this is a conversation that is not being brought up in the media a lot, but that's something important to have. We haven't really got into the conversation about how the Robert Pickton case was handled. That was interesting. That's with people in the know there know what a lot happened there, and there's a lot of stuff that didn't come out about how that was handled. There's some people very angry about that. About the missing, murdered, and Indigenous women. I mean, so we're talking about, and even during the Housing Central conference that I was at this week, we talked a lot about, I went to one of the sessions, was talking about this concept around reconciliation and what that looks like and what steps need to be made. So I don't see this conversation as a hurtful thing. I see this conversation as a valuable thing of us trying to go forward as a society to ensure that we have repaired that relationship and have moved forward in that relationship with the Indigenous community. And I want to close this off with reading something that I read in the Toronto Star. And the title of it is... And, there's going to be counteractions to this, and I welcome them as well, certainly to hear the other side, but I think it's important to hear this. The title of this article in the Star was, Edmonton Eskimos is a racial slur, and it's time to stop using it. And I'm just going to read the beginning of it. By using the word Eskimos, they are perpetuating ideas that go along with the word. Firstly, Eskimo is not used by my peoples, and secondly, they are perpetuating the concept that Inuit do not have the abilities required for present-day modern living. And then she goes on to remind us that the use of the Eskimos name has been a recurring issue for the past few years, especially since Nathan Obed, national Inuit leader for an Inuit Tapiri Kenatami, so apologies for mispronouncing that if I did, called for the elimination of the name as part of his organization's ongoing fight against colonization and the name of reconciliation. And the issue of Inuit being used, and Obed is quoted as saying this, the issue of Inuit being used as a sports team mascot matters because this is the way this legacy continues to play out in popular culture. So that's one perspective on this. So yes, I think at the very least of this conversation is very important to have. So let's continue to converse about it. You can tweet again at KEVOLE, the Twitter poll's there. I will add it on Facebook. Follow me and add me on Facebook, Kevin Olenick, Spreaker.com, KEVOLE, Soundcloud.com, KEVOLE. Like and subscribe on YouTube. You can also become a Patreon. Check that out at Kevin Olenick. Busy weekend for podcast. I have 4 scheduled. We will be talking tomorrow with Bottom Line View's own Mitch Milani. We do the NFL stuff together, and director here in town, Hans Potter, will be joining to review. It is a spoiler edition, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, and you watch this review, and then you're frustrated because we spoiled it, that's on you. But we're reviewing the Justice League movie. We got some other ones. We'll be reviewing Stranger Things still. I still want to review that, as well as Punisher as well. We'll probably be reviewing that later on in the week. I'll be talking to former Van Arts, friend of mine, but Van Arts student, Van Arts alumni James Murray, as well, recording tomorrow. Talk about the transition from school to the broadcasting world, the actual real world of getting the radio job. What has that been like? What have been the ups? What have been the downs? So you'll hear that from a graduate and learn his story. We'll be interviewing him. Also, B. Capitan, who was on for our Defending Vancouver podcast that you can check out. She's coming back as she has a award-winning project that she wants to talk to you about. And we're going to talk to her about that, and you'll have time to vote till the 30th on that project. So check that out. Anyway, hope you have a great rest of your night. I mentioned the channels. Hope you're doing well. We will all talk to you tomorrow or whenever we speak. Have a great night. Bye for now.